Hey there, my friends, it's Dave Wood. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be free form, and I'm going to talk to you about how to make money blogging. Now, this is the reality, is that most of the things that are talking about blogging are not talking about blogging from a perspective of making money. They're talking about blogging from a perspective of doing SEO, of doing research to research keywords, which are all important things that you need to do if you want to make money blogging. But let me tell you my story of how I started making money blogging, and then I'm going to get to the real root of the matter, which is actually how to create your content in a compelling, effective way that actually gets you the results that you want, which in this case is making money. So if you take these strategies and you think them through in your business, what you're going to be able to do with them is you'll be able to take the content that you're creating, maximize it, and you'll be able to make the most money you could possibly make from it. Now, I've also prepared a bonus that's going to walk you through a few of these points and help you build a strategy to implement these into your business. And also there's going to be an audio download of that. When you put in your email and you get your bonuses, they'll be on the next page, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. So first of all, how did I get started blogging? Well, it's really simple. I was homeless, I was living in a van, and I got fired from my job. I was working at Greenpeace, and so I was parking at different beaches in Hawaii and hitting people up on street corners for donations in Greenpeace. That was the first time I'd ever heard of Greenpeace. I just needed a job, and really I think they're kind of a socialist, dumb organization, but I like the environment. And so I went there, I got a job hitting people up on street corners for subscriptions, and then they fired me for being late. So I got fired from Greenpeace, if you could imagine that. You know, the executives getting together in an annual pot smoking meeting, and they decide to fire the person for being late. I just think it was hilarious. And no, who gets fired from Greenpeace? Just me, right? So I get fired from that, and then I just knew something had to change one day. I'm not going to give the whole story, but I decided to make a change. I mapped out my future, and I said, I need to start a business. So here's what I did. I borrowed money to start a business. I borrowed money for a computer, and it was actually a cheap computer. This wasn't some fancy, Mac like I've got today that was like $3 grand. It was like $150 from eBay with an $8 webcam, and I borrowed $158 from my mom to buy that because I was that broke. And I moved into my parents' house, plugged into a hardwired Ethernet connection that today would be like it would be like a sloth moving. It was so slow, and carrying an internet signal from one city to another. That's how slow the internet was. But in any case, I sat there and I worked all day, and what I did was I went online. I said, how can a homeless man get traffic on the internet? Because all the things that were being taught in my niche at the time were PPC. Just like today, the most commonly taught traffic form that you'll see in the niche where you're talking about affiliate marketing, making money, it's going to be Facebook ads. Why? Because Facebook ads are hot, and Facebook ads are actually useful, right? But for me, I didn't have money for advertising, so I got into blogging. Why? Because there was another homeless guy I found on the internet who was actually making all of his money blogging. He was making like $3,000 a month going from city to city working in coffee shops, which I thought was hilarious. I bought an ebook from this guy, which probably added to his $3,000 a month, and then I was like, I can do this. And so I started to blog. Now, years later, I'm still blogging. I've done hundreds of millions of dollars in sales blogging, and I continuously produce multiple six figures a month from blog content, some of which I created years ago. And it works like that for a reason. It works because my blogs are not just there to inform, they're there to inform and also to sell in a specific way. So let's talk about how to take your content and just maximize it and make more money from it, okay? And first of all, let me get into a couple of really basic things quickly. And the first thing that I really want to cover with you is why it's important to create content. I've taught people this for a long time, but I've taught it in a little bit different ways. I really want you to pay attention, to focus on this, because if you pay attention, focus to this, this is really going to change your business and change the way that you blog. Why is it important to create content? It's important to create content because if you start creating content, you're going to start thinking in a different way about your business. See, if you're doing something, for example, like researching, and you're looking to learn, you research totally differently than if you're looking to teach, right? Just try it, right? Think about like a school teacher or professor. Do you think that they read the newspaper or they read a history book a little bit differently than somebody that doesn't have to teach that later in the day? Of course they do. If you've got a room full of students in front of you and you've got to pick up some material in the morning and then teach it in the afternoon, you're going to pay attention totally differently. You're actually going to remember it differently too. So in other words, if you're going to study something and you're going to teach it later in that day, you need to learn it in order to be able to teach it, and you need to be able to absorb it differently. When you start creating content, what happens is you start paying attention to the things that you're learning differently. And so what you do is, rather than just reading to read, you read to teach. And if you start creating content in your subject that you want to be an expert in, what's going to happen is you're going to get to be an expert a lot quicker, because there's different kinds of learning. What do I mean by that? Well, if you watch this episode, you're watching a video that's teaching you how to create content. Well, then if you write me a thoughtful comment below and you tell me what you learned from this, in order to win a prize, we send free books because I like to teach people to read, right? I got that from Oprah. Oprah teaches people to read, and you know what? I'm not black and beautiful or a woman, but I like to teach people to read. And so Oprah teaches people to read. I figure I'll do that. Tony Robbins teaches people to read, and I like to read too. But if you write us a really thoughtful comment down there about what you learned today, we'll send you a free book in the mail, paid for by us. You don't even have to pay shipping if your comment is the best comment of the day. But that'll engage your mind in a different way, because you're thinking about this show in the context of how can I take this information and how can I put it into a comment below, and do that in a way where I can win a book. If you watch this entire episode with the intention of winning, you're also going to pay attention to the content differently. Does that make sense? Now, also, if you put your email in and you claim your bonuses on the next page, we're going to give you an audio and we're going to give you a PDF. If you listen to that audio, you're going to take in this information in a different way than watching the video. And then if you read the PDF, which is going to be transcription material plus written material plus questions you can fill out, you're going to have a tactile experience writing, responding to the questions. Obviously, you're going to learn differently than if you just watch the episode, right? And all forms of learning are important. I'm a tactile learner. Actually, when I read, I walk around. I walk up and down the stairs. I do kung fu while I'm reading. I like to move while I read, or I stop paying attention as well. And so people learn in different ways. So if you write and if you create content about what you're learning about, you're going to be kind of an expert in whatever you want to be an expert in way more quick, right? And you're going to get way more powerful with that information. You're going to know that information inside and out, because you have to present it in a certain way to appear intelligent, and I hope you want to appear intelligent online. So what does this have to do with where we are right now in watching this video? Well, for me, blogging is important because you're going to learn better if you blog. Number two, you're going to be able to create traffic while you're learning. Number three, you're actually going to learn and master the information better, and the longer you do it, the better it works. And it's never stopped working. It'll never stop. It'll never stop working in the future. On the next page, in that bonus, we'll actually give you some tips on how to blog more effectively. But what I want to do right now is I want to go and break blogging apart, and I want to get into a bigger picture of what are some things that you can do in a big picture in order to create more compelling content? Because it's not just a blog that you can create content on today. You can create content on YouTube, you can create content on Facebook, you can create content on blog, you could create content also on audios, for example, in a podcast that you're going to be able to, that you could publish to the iTunes store. All of that stuff is free to do, right? I want your content to be more effective. And so let's go through a few points that you can use to maximize the effectiveness of your content. Point number one, I want to teach you how to do a call to action. A lot of people, what they do is they create content, they do free training, but they don't do a good call to action. And what's a call to action? A call to action is really specific. It's telling people exactly what to do in descriptive terms. It's not just telling them what to do, or it's not just suggesting them, it's telling them what to do. I remember back 10 years ago or so, I was in a seminar. There was a guy named Dave Severn, and he said something, and I'll never forget it because he said it in some funny voice, and it just kind of sank into my unconscious mind. But I was sitting there, and he goes, "You don't want to ask people what to do. No, you tell them what to do. Tell them exactly what to do." And he said, "Watch." And he looked at somebody. He says, "Stand up, sir." And the guy stood up, and he says, he just did it because I told him what to do. And anyways, one of the things I learned in sales is that salespeople who ask people what they want to do are weak, right? And so what a good salesperson does is they diagnose a problem and then they tell people what to do. So if people are coming to your blog and they actually read that entire content, they do want what you're offering. And that's the thing I want you to understand. If your offer is in congruence with your content, and I hope that it is, if they come and they read some 1,000 or 2,000 word article that you wrote that gives them an answer to their problem, they need your solution, right? And so you should have no compunction in telling them what to do. And so whenever you create content, you want to tell them one thing to do and tell them exactly and specifically exactly what to do. So one of the things that NLP people learn from studying effective commanders in the military is that there's a structure to giving a proper call to action. And what we found is that if you tell people in 3 steps what to do, they actually do it more often. In other words, if I just tell you, write a comment when this episode's done, you're likely to do it at a certain level. But if I tell you 2 steps, you're more likely to do it. But if I tell you how to do it in 3 descriptive steps, then you're way more likely to do it. So for example, if I say, when this episode's over, here's what you need to do next. Number 1, scroll down, you're gonna find the comment area. Number 2, I want you to write the most thoughtful comment that you possibly can, because if you write the most thoughtful comment, I'm gonna give you a free book to help you learn about these strategies. Number 3, I want you to post that comment before you proceed to the next step. So again, I want you to scroll down, I want you to write a thoughtful comment, and I want you to hit the submit button and actually submit that comment on the page and make sure it's the most thoughtful one on the page, right? Telling you what to do in descriptive terms in 3 steps makes you way more likely because you see yourself actually doing it. For example, if I want you on a blog post to click on a banner, let's say there's a banner on the page, or actually I'll use this page because it makes more sense. It makes more sense to use this page. Let's say I want you to opt in. What I would do is I would do something like this. I would say, look, after this video is over, not yet, I'm actually going to ask you to put in your email. And then I would do some content, and then later, when I came back to that, I would say, all right, it's time to actually claim your free bonuses. So here's exactly what you want to do. Number 1, scroll down, you're going to find a field to enter in your email. You want to put your best email in that field. Once you put your best email in that field and confirm that it's correct, go ahead and hit the button below the email field. You're going to submit your email to us and then claim your bonuses on the next page, because when you do that, I'm going to send you inspiring content every single day, just like this video, right? That is so descriptive. You see yourself doing it while I'm doing the call to action, okay? I can get more into call to actions in the future. That's how to do a compelling call to action. You can do it written, you can do it descriptive. Number 2, you want to leverage your blog content, right? All wealth's produced through leverage, and a lot of people, they create something and they think that they're done, but actually creating it is like 10% and leveraging it is like 90% of what's going to get you the most action from what you create. What do I mean when I say leverage your content? You want to take your content and you want to put it out in as many modalities as you possibly can. And there's so many modalities you could put your content in, you can't even imagine it. For example, you could take the principles that I'm teaching you today and you could create an infographic. An infographic is like a visual tutorial on what I'm talking about that's broken into points. And you could go get infographics created on Fiverr for very cheap, like $5 you could get them created, right? But you want to get an infographic created. That'd be one way of taking your content and moving it into a different modality. Another way of doing that would be to take your content and to use a teleprompter, use an audio to create a video from that content. Another way would be to take an audio recording of that content, and then what you could do is you could start a podcast and actually read your content with a passionate storytelling voice, right? In a podcast, you could actually start a podcast. Another thing you could do with the content is you could actually write an email to your list and send an email to your list to that content to give your list value too. Another way you could leverage your content is, I don't know if you've seen this recently, but you can have actually push notifications, push into people's computers, and you can actually give your content to them through push notifications as well. You could also leverage your content through multilingual translation, translating it in different languages to generate more traffic. Now, if your products aren't in multiple language, that probably is a waste of time and money, but if your products are in multiple language like ours, that's a really good use of your time. Right now, we're actually building all our systems out to be multilingual because it's extremely cheap today. I have just started to compile a fraction of the fraction of the fraction of the fraction of things you could do to leverage your content. But you want to think content leverage. How can I take this and put this into more areas? This is more of a thinking strategy for you. Number 3, what you could do is you could upgrade your most popular posts. What I actually like to do, and this is a way that I actually create content, is on my personal Facebook wall, I just post stuff when I think about something that I think is a good idea. And I just watch how people react to it. A lot of people don't even know I'm doing that. But what I do is I post stuff on my Facebook, I see how people react. Sometimes people want to know more. And then what I do, if they ask me for more, I say, hey, remind me tomorrow if you really want to learn about that. And then sometimes people will send me a message and remind me the next day to teach them how it works, and then I'll go write a really big article on it, and then tons of people respond. Well, for me, that's just me thinking out loud and kind of testing the market, and then what I do is I take that and I send it off to somebody, and then somebody takes that and they form it into one of these shows in a format that I can follow. And sometimes I actually will do it word for word on a teleprompter if I've very, very detailed written out myself, and sometimes I'll free flow like today. But the reality is that that's a process for me that works because I like to read, I get worked up about something, I write about it, I see what people respond to, then I take that and I put it into a show. It takes me almost no time whatsoever because I do this stuff anyways, right? People put rants on Facebook anyways, but they don't turn them into content, right? So for me, what I like to do is I like to, number 1, create content, and then when it's popular, I take that and I upgrade it, because One way of testing ads is by spending a bunch of money on it. Another way of testing something on whether or not it's going to work in advertising is to just post it and to see how people respond to it. If tons of people respond to it, it's probably pretty likely that you could take something like that, if it's related to your business, has a call to action, is getting people to respond, you could probably take something just like what you just made, and you could put that into a long-form story post that you then promote on Facebook, and it's a lot better use of your time and money. Does that make sense? So you want to think through every aspect of your business and think about how to do this in a more effective way for yourself, because I don't want to sit there and spend 6 or 7 hours on SEO. I want to leverage myself through systems. Here's another thing that you could do to leverage your content, and this is going to be point number 4, and that's to do retargeting. Now, retargeting is something that's gotten a lot more popular in the last year, but if you're doing blogging, you should retarget visitors if you're planning on maximizing your traffic. And you can do this in lots of different ways. But for example, if you just put a pixel on the page from Facebook, all this stuff is super easy to do. You can actually put ads that respond to your customers from the visitors that hit the pages on your blog. So if you get a blog visitor, Facebook records that because that person uses the same IP address perhaps for a Facebook account. They record it through pixel data, and then what happens is that pushes it to a Facebook audience, and then you could appear in people's timelines and feeds, and it seems like you're everywhere all of a sudden. And what I learned a long time ago is that when you appear everywhere, it creates an unconscious effect in people's minds where they just trust you more. So for example, if you come to this page and then you see me on Facebook, it's like, God, that guy's everywhere, right? Well, I'm not really everywhere. It's because you got pixeled on one of the pages, right? Or you put your email in on one of the pages, or perhaps I am everywhere. Maybe you should check. But the reality is that the retargeting networks are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You could retarget through YouTube, you could do it through Google, you could actually do it on podcasts. There's lots of ways of doing retargeting, but what you want to do is you want to maximize your content. So if you get a visitor, you want to create as much profitability from each visitor as you possibly can for your specific business and the metrics that you use to govern your business. Now here's the 5th point, and this is really important, and this is a personal thinking process. Now of course, if you're involved in the Total Shortcut, you don't have to do any of this, but the reality is that we do so much stuff for people, they couldn't possibly do this for themselves, and most of the stuff we do they don't even know exists, right? That's to maximize your system. And what do I mean by that? Well, every single part of everything that you're doing on a daily basis should be maximized, and over a period of time it should just get better and better and better and better. There's a word in Japanese, it's called Kaizen. It's become popular in the last few years, but I actually know that word because years ago I met a guy and his company is called Kaizen. But Kaizen means continuous improvement is what it means, right? What you actually want to do is you don't want to focus on being perfect. What you do want to focus on is you want to focus on taking what you're doing and making it better all the time, right? Kaizen, that's the Japanese word for it. Just make it better all the time. So in other words, today you want to come and you don't want to just do only the same thing you did yesterday. You could only do the same amount of work every day, but make part of that work that you're doing maximizing and improving your system. So for example, one of the things that I like to do is I like to take what I'm doing, and every day I like to look at it and say, how can I make this particular process that I'm managing a little bit better, a little bit more powerful, a little bit more rich? How can I make it more profitable? How can I maximize the quality of the lead that I'm getting from the traffic that I'm getting? How can I take that lead and get more data? How can I take that data and turn it into more customers? How can I take those customers and give them what they want in exchange for money to make it so my company's more profitable, my reps make more money? Every day you want to take your system and you want to make it a little bit better in every part. And that should be your goal, is to maximize your system. So those 5 points, my friend, they'll help you. I know that was a lot. On the next page, I've got a bonus for you. Here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to scroll down right to the comment area. And in the comment area, what you need to do is write a thoughtful comment on what you're going to change and the thinking that's changed today for you on these strategies I give you. And if you write the best one, we're going to select your comment and we'll send you a free book, okay? Now, number 2, after that, I want you to scroll back up, and you're going to see a place to put your email. Put your best email, the same one you use on Facebook, in that field, and then hit the submit button. And that's going to submit your email to us so we can send content to you like this every day. But in addition to that, that's going to give you your bonuses to help you implement this information. You're going to get an audio, you're going to get a PDF workbook, and also in addition to that, we want to see what we can do for you, how we can help you, and help you create a complete total shortcut for your business, for your life, to help you maximize the results that you're getting in your life. So right now, first scroll down, write a comment. Second, scroll back up, put it in an email. Third, hit the submit button. And then on the next page, of course, you can claim your bonuses, and I just want to help make your life better. And so I hope this made sense. I hope it helped you. I'm here to help you win bigger and better every day, and that's why we do this 5 days a week. My friends, this has been another episode of The Daily Shortcut. Let's lock arms and fight the forces of evil with our eyes closed. I'm joking. I'll see you in the next episode.